So welcome back to the Don Lemon Show, everyone. I am so grateful to be joined by none other than the Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. Governor, thank you so much for joining.
It's so good
I
to be
appreciate
here.
it.
Always.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Look, can we talk about the presidential race?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Because who isn't, right? Who isn't
Right.
talking about it? Are you surprised by the speed with which the Democratic Party has united around Vice President Kamala Harris? Because we were talking not too long ago about, should Joe Biden, the president, should he drop out of the race? What should happen? And now it seems like the whole machine is behind. Are you surprised?
I'm not for two reasons. One, because of Joe Biden. I think had Joe Biden done what quite honestly would have been perfectly normal and fine and expected, had he said, listen, I'm not going to run, and then given it a couple days to breathe, I think you probably would have seen chaos in the Democratic Party. The fact that he turned around so quickly and said, I'm not going to run and I'm supporting my vice president, I think that really allowed tents to fold up and people to say, we're all in. And I think the other big reason is because, the vice president has a history of doing the work. And, when you talk about someone who, if you believed in the vision and what's happened with the Biden-Harris administration, you can't forget that it was the Biden-Harris administration.
Right.
And so you can't dismiss her body of work, and you can't dismiss her preparedness to be able to take this thing into the future.
Is it frustrating for you to hear people say, "Oh, this is a coronation. She doesn't have the experience. What did she do as vice president?" It seems to be like this whole sort of avalanche coming from the right about her not having the experience and being a DEI hire, which is insulting.
It's ridiculously insulting. It's disappointing. It's not surprising, because we knew this was going to be a lane of attack. I think the thing that has been really important is the fact that it's not working. And I know as someone who has been called the DEI governor, and literally I remember being called the DEI governor when we were dealing with the Key Bridge collapse. Yeah. And people asked me, they're like, well, how do you respond to that? And my answer was, I don't, because I don't deal with foolishness. Like, I'm too busy doing the work.
So you don't think she should respond? Should her folks respond to that?
No. I think that, I always think this about ignorance. Ignorance requires oxygen. Ignorance requires attention. When you give ignorance attention, ignorance grows. And so I'm just a big believer in the idea that if you want to kill ignorance, starve it of oxygen. Because if you starve it from oxygen, eventually it cannot grow. I think the way she responds, show your body of work, show your vision, watch the army that she is mobilizing. And then I think eventually, the quiet complaints and chirping, it's amazing how it'll fade away.
Well, it's surprising how the same people are saying, well, she needs to pick someone who's a white guy, right? But why is that not a DEI hire if they're saying that she's a DEI pick because the president said he needed a vice president who was a woman. And then now everyone is saying she needs a white guy, but they're not saying that's a DEI hire or pick.
Interesting how that works.
Yeah, how does that work? Explain that.
Interesting how that works.
When you say, well, watch what she does, I feel like, I know we've seen her more than the current president. Yeah. Is that on purpose?
Yes. I think it's on purpose because, being the president of the United States and running for re-election, it's like literally asking someone to do two massively full-time jobs. Right. All at once. And I think, and I remember I had the pleasure of speaking with the president on Sunday night, the night that he announced that he wasn't running. And I had a lengthy conversation with the president. And I have a deep, deep respect for Joe Biden, for who he is as a man, for who he is as a leader, for the 50 plus years of service. And I remember I was telling him just how much I appreciated him. And he said to me, he said, Gov, he said, this isn't a eulogy. I'm here till January. And he was right, because he's like, I need to focus all my attention on accomplishing the things that are sitting in front of me, the big things that we still have to get done right now. And so if the vice president now, her job is both to be the vice president, but also her job is to chart the course for the vision for both the party and for the country. She's doing exactly what she needs to be doing, and right now the president is doing exactly what the president needs to be doing.
You think so? Because, again, the criticism, I hate letting your enemies define you, right? Yeah. We make that mistake all the time. But they're saying, well, where is Joe Biden? It's almost like Kamala Harris is the president of the United States now because she's making all the statements, she's out there all the time, she is the bully pulpit. Yes. You think that is smart for them to do that?
I think, where's Joe Biden? He's being the president of the United States. That Joe Biden is still very much setting the course for the Biden-Harris administration. The vice president is setting the trajectory for what will be the Harris administration. She's very much a part of this core work that's taking place right now, and frankly, the core work that's continued to bring results to the American people. But she also knows that her job, in the way that the president now no longer has to, is set the vision for what does the future of this country look like.
So you spoke to the President of the United States. You said on the 9th that he decided not to run. Did you still have confidence at that point, even before that he could do the job?
I definitely have confidence that he could do the job, because I have had the joy of working with him for the past 18 months, watching him do it. You know, and I remember that morning when the Key Bridge collapsed.
Right.
And the first phone call that I got from the White House was at 3:30 that morning. I watched the President of the United States at noon that day say to the entire world that we're going to stand with Baltimore, and we're going to be with them every step of the way, and he has been.
Yeah.
So I'm biased, because, and I'm also a loyalty guy, and I also know that when we were knocked down, the president stood with us, and so I knew that I was going to stand with him.
It may seem like an odd question, but were you disappointed that he stepped out?
It did hit me. I knew he was. I was disappointed, frankly, in the way that he was treated by some people. I feel like he deserved better.
How so? Tell me.
I feel like this is a man who has committed his life to not just this country and to democratic ideals, but also to the Democratic Party. And I think there were some people who used this as an opportunity to make demands of him, to try to embarrass him in a way that he deserved better.
You mean even members of his own party?
Especially members of his own party.
Really?
I feel like he deserved better from some people, particularly some of the people, you know, who are using this for their 5 minutes of fame to get on television to say, I'm demanding that the president do this or demanding the president do that. Joe Biden is a true man of honor, and he's a man of integrity. And I just feel like he deserved that space. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, that people weren't being honest. I always believe when you care about somebody, you tell them the truth. And there were many private conversations.
But you don't have to do that publicly.
But you don't have to do that publicly.
Right, I agree.
You do not have to do that.
That's always my frustration with people, especially my own people. It's like, why didn't you just call me?
Just call me.
If you disagree with something that I said, just, hey, call me up and say, hey, listen, brother, I disagree. And
That's right.
we can work it out. Why do you go on television
Correct.
not having the full knowledge of what you're talking about and then criticize someone? I agree 100% with you on that. Let me ask you then, what do you think her strategy should be to win November? Should it be, should she sort of bring the band back together, rebuild the Obama coalition, or does she need to do something new and live in Michigan and all those states that she, you know, that Democrats may be having a problem with?
I think she needs to build the Harris coalition. I think that, you know, she is going to be able to show that this is her party now. This is her machine.
This is the Harris party.
This is the
she's
Harris
the leader
party.
of the party right now.
100. She's the party nominee. This is her party. And I think that every decision that she makes needs to reflect that, from her running mate to who she has as advisors. Who she has to pick the people who she trusts. She has to pick the people who she has confidence in. She has to make the strategic political decisions that she needs to make. I know that I saw that in you know, when I was running for governor, where people were saying, well, what's your team and how are you going to assemble, and is it this administration's people or that administration's people? And my answer was, these are all Moore Miller people. These are people who, this is people in the frame of me, because as the titular leader of the Democratic Party in the state of Maryland, and now as the governor, as the leader of the party, this has to embody your vision, your values, your focus, and nobody else's. And I think that this is where she is the, you know, she will be the new leader of the party. Yeah. And so it needs to embody that.
I was looking for a statement because she made a statement on Israel and Gaza today after meeting with Netanyahu, since she said this is her party and she's setting the direction for the Democratic Party. Yeah. It's going to be interesting because I imagine there are certain ways that she wants to tie herself to the major accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration, and then there are ways that she probably wants to distance herself. And I was wondering if one of those is Gaza, for example. In prepared remarks after her meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, she said, quote, "We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent." That reportedly enraged Benjamin Netanyahu. What do you think of that?
You know, I actually don't think that that's terribly different from the president either.
Yeah.
I think that this challenge that is existing has been one that is not new. A challenge of saying that, you know, this can be a nation that stands with Israel. This can be a nation that says that we need to have the hostages released right now. That we need to be able to have a state that can defend itself. We need to be able to acknowledge that we don't think that Hamas can be a legitimate partner inside this work, knowing not just the origins but the vision for what Hamas is, that you're going to have a Palestinian Authority that's able to bring us to a better state, and be able to say that having a two-state solution has to be the focus of what we're going to accomplish, and being able to end the death and the destruction in Gaza have to be things that we, not just as a party but as a nation, have to believe in. So I think this is frankly, it's been a tension that I think has existed within the administration. You know, I don't think that what the vice president said is terribly different from where the president also has been on this. I think she's just a different one.
She's very strong about being an ally of Israel, right? But she also said one cannot look away from this. Do you think that the U.S. and the current administration, or the Harris administration, do you think the policy, they need to tweak the policy towards Israel?
I think we need to get towards a two-state solution.
That's it.
I think that is not, because I think we still have a dynamic where we need to be able to address the suffering in Gaza. We've got to make sure that we are getting humanitarian aid and humanitarian support on board. And we have to make sure that we are getting these hostages released and getting these hostages out. We can't forget, we're talking about now nearly a year that we had people who were kidnapped, taken from their families, taken from their homelands, and now in custody of an organization that is not and will never be a partner inside of a peace process. Yeah. And at the same time, though, if we're not talking about having a two-state solution and having something where you can have democratic and peaceful states side by side and living together, any other solution becomes really difficult and really complicated.
Listen, that's all well and good when you're talking about policy in general. There are people we have an election coming up. There are people, Arab Americans, who are in Michigan right now saying, hey, wait a minute, what are you going to do? They don't like, the policy so far. Yeah. How should she address that? What does she say to those people? I know you can't speak for her, but you've been in tough situations like this as a politician. What do you think she should say to them?
I think she has to, and she will articulate what is her vision for this going forward. Yeah. I think there is a real hope that all of us have, and I think the president has articulated that we are close to getting a deal done that would force the immediate ceasefire, that would release the hostages, that would put us on a path for a long-term peaceful solution within the region. Yeah. I think she is going to have to articulate what that looks like and how do we get there. And frankly, one thing I know is that Donald Trump has not articulated that. Yeah. The answer we've gotten from Donald Trump is do whatever you got to do, which I'm not even sure what that means. But
yeah, on day one, all right, there's always something like that. I put these glasses on to read your quote, but I don't need it because it's so short. So because it has been put forth that you should be on the vice presidential list, right? You said to CBS, I don't know who you spoke to. Did you speak to Gail over there? I'm not sure. Gail. You said, no interest. Why no interest, Governor?
Because I love what I'm doing. I do. I love my job. I love, when I took over as governor, Maryland was 43rd in unemployment. Yeah. We're now going on 12 straight months of amongst the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country. This past month, we were at 2.8%. That before I became governor, we went 8 straight years of watching the homicide rates in Baltimore were over 300 for 8 straight years. Yeah. The homicide rate over an 8-year period in Maryland nearly doubled, right? Since I've been the governor, we've watched amongst the fastest drops of homicides across the state in the entire country. The last time the homicide rate was this low in Baltimore and the violent crime rate in Baltimore is this low, I wasn't born yet. You know, we've been able to we did the largest mass pardon of cannabis convictions in the history of this country, 175,000 cannabis convictions. We've been able to clear the Port of Baltimore and get it reopened in 11 weeks instead of 11 months. Like things are moving and things are going so well. And I love my job and I love my people.
Look, you're glowing talking about what's happening. That's good for you. I'm glad. I'm really happy for you. But who should it be then? Because there are a lot of, there's Bashir, there's Shapiro, there's Markelly, who should it be then?
It should be the person the vice president thinks can be her partner in the work.
Everyone is saying it's got to be like a white guy that can bring a state. It's got to be a white guy. It's got to be a white guy. What do you think? Traditional politician kind.
I remember when I selected my lieutenant governor, and Maryland had never had a black governor in the history of the state's history. In fact, I'm only the third African American ever elected governor in the history of this country. And I selected a woman who became the first immigrant ever elected to statewide office, an Indian woman, another woman of color. And I remember people said to me, they're like, "You're making a mistake. You just ended your election by picking a woman of color to be your running mate." And even she said that to me. She said, "Wes, are you sure you want to do this?" And I said to her, "Listen, if a person isn't going to vote for me because I picked a woman of color who's so qualified to do this job, they weren't going to vote for me in the first place."
So you're saying she should do something different?
I'm saying that she should do something that fits her.
Yeah.
So that would be a bold
two
selection.
women, a gay man, Pete Buttigieg, Gretchen Whitmer as a woman, you think?
If she feels that this is the person who can be her partner inside this work, I say, forget what anyone else thinks. Because people are going to vote for the top of the ticket. People are going to vote for your vision.
Cedric Richmond from Louisiana?
People are going to vote. Whoever she can look at and say, this is my partner in the work. I don't think that people are going to respond to selections by checking boxes.
Yeah. Speaking of the VP, Vance, JD Vance, I can't even remember his name for a second. Yeah. And that's probably the problem. JD Vance is having some issues right now. He's polling really low when it comes to,
everything.
Public perception, everything. Do you think Trump will drop him?
I don't think he'll drop him, but I think this shows another fundamental flaw. I'm not sure what background checks they did on JD Vance. If they should have asked me. Because I know JD Vance. I've known JD Vance for a long time. And because I've known him for a long time is exactly why I could never support him for that role, because I know who he is and I know what he is not. He is a shapeshifter. He is someone who will give you a different thing depending on who you are. This is literally a person who a few years ago compared Donald Trump to an opioid. And now he's saying that he is a
Not only that,
leader.
he compared him to Hitler.
He compared him to Hitler. And now he's running as his running mate. He is a shapeshifter. And I look at his values and what he stands for. This is literally a person who is on the record of saying things like he thinks that people should have to, be abducted by federal agents if a woman crosses a border to have her reproductive health honored. This is literally a person who has said things like people who do not have children should pay more taxes because they have less interest in the future of the country. These are so warped. It's such an odd and a warped view of the world. It's such an odd and a warped view of your neighbors, the people who are your friends and your colleagues, and people who are living next door to us. I just don't think that his very closed, isolationist, and frankly very angry values, I don't think they correspond to the people of this country. So if Donald Trump feels that that's why this election is the selection of a vice president is so important. It's less about what can that person deliver or what state can they deliver. I actually don't buy any of that. It's about values. And I think it shows his values.
He also said Mountain Dew was racist, and
I'm
I'm not sure how that happened.
He's a different kind of dude.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you about some things in Maryland Senate race. Very closely watched, particularly because Larry Hogan is proving to be far more competitive than your average Republican. What do you think the race is even remotely close to happening? What is happening in deep blue Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, I think Angela Alsobrooks, who's the county executive, who I endorsed early, and I think is just a fantastic candidate. I think she will win. But I think
so you're not worried about Hogan?
Well, I think he is a former governor with, with pretty universal name recognition. I also just think that, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do.
Yeah.
I think this is a person who throughout when he was actually in power, he vetoed legislation providing protection for people seeking reproductive health. He vetoed legislation enhancing privacy for women who are seeking abortion care. He did not release funds that went towards it. On my first day of office, I had to release $3.5 million of previously unreleased funds going towards protections and training for providers because the former governor would not release that money because of political reasons. This is a person who during his entire time as governor, we saw the homicide rate explode, and he did nothing to be able to address it.
He's also a shapeshifter as well.
He's another one. You can't say that, I want to get illegal guns off the street, but when legislation made it to your desk to ban ghost guns, you didn't sign it.
Yeah, you didn't
so
sign it.
I can't believe what you say because I see what you do, and I think that's going to come out.
You are the third most popular governor in the United States, a 65% approval rating. I mean, in politics, that's pretty crazy. So why are you so popular, and why don't you want to be vice president?
Well, I think the reason and the thing that I'm really thankful for is you don't get that number because you're just winning Democrats.
Yeah.
We're winning Democrats, we're winning independents, we're winning a good chunk of Republicans because we're actually getting big, common sense things done on a bipartisan basis. We've introduced 26 pieces of legislation since I've been the governor of Maryland. Not only have we gone 26 for 26, we've gone 26 for 26 bipartisan. We've gotten Democrat and Republican support on every single bill that we've introduced, and we've gotten some really big things done. But it's because we're actually working together, and I'm actually going to every corner of our state and making our case, and it's working.
Yeah, with a woman of color as lieutenant governor.
That's exactly right.
It's all working.
That's exactly right.
So if I'm looking back in maybe 2028 or whatever, so am I ever going to be, I know you hate doing this, and I asked Senator Barack Obama when I was in Chicago, was a local anchor there, the very same question. Do you have political, you remember after the speech?
What was his answer?
I can't remember what his answer was. Don, right now I just, I want to be senator or something. I forget what something like that. Don't talk about that. So am I going to be, one day I'm going to say, hey, I sat down, he was the governor then, and now he's president or vice president.
I think that if you look 10 years from now, when I think about what Maryland is going to be doing 10 years from now, I literally get giddy with excitement. No, I really do, because I really believe this is going to be Maryland's decade. Right. If you look at what we've gotten done in just the first 18 months.
But you're not answering the president and vice president question.
No, because I don't think we need to. I think I'm just telling people, watch us work. Watch what we're doing.
That's fair enough. You know what you didn't answer for me before I let you go? You did not answer who you think it should be. You said it should be, meaning for vice president, it should be someone. Who would you pick?
The person who Kamala Harris is most comfortable with. No, I really, because and here's why I say that, and I'm being serious. I can't answer that question for her.
All right.
And I think that, again, I remember people gave me counsel and advice when I was selecting a lieutenant governor. And I knew they were giving me counsel and advice they thought was their best opinions, and who could cover down on this part of the state and that part of the state. But at the end of the day, the decision I made was one I was very comfortable with, because I said, this is the person I see as my partner in the work.
Yeah.
Nothing else is going to matter. Yeah. Nothing else is going to matter.
I did the circle back. I tried to get an answer or whatever, but you would. Governor, thank you. I really appreciate it. Congratulations to you.
And
congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching The Don Lemon Show. Make sure you click on the image in the top right to subscribe to my channel, and the thumbnail in the bottom right to watch more content from my show. And I'll see you next time.